So I'll do a little bit of preamble. Thank you, Leon. So I finished the presentation just before the break with display none and another little warning sign. So one of the things that often happens with responsive skins, responsive sites, is as the device narrows, certain content is turned off. But what actually happens as it's turned off using display none, I don't display this, but it's still being sent to the device. And we've seen some sites that have won awards, fantastic look and feel, but actually on a small screen device they're downloading megabytes of content to never display it. And for me that was always a bit of a sort of problem as an engineer, that why are we sending information to a device when it can't display it? And that's really the problem we're going to start looking at, and we're going to do this in two parts. So one of the beauties of these events is you get to talk to people, and I spoke to Bogdan of DNN Sharp yesterday, and he's got a different solution to this. So we're going to go through both. So I'm going to go through reasonably quickly. I'm conscious we're also starting a bit late as well, so perhaps, Jeff, I think you're on after me. If you can agree 5 minutes or something, that'll be great. Okay. I'll try not to indulge too much. So we're going to go through this solution very quickly, which is basically looking at the code in order to create containers that can be turned on and off based on the title of the container, and I'll show you how that works. And then we're going to switch over to Bogdan, who's going to show how to do this in DNN Sharp with my tokens, and it really is wonderful. We got together yesterday, in 10 minutes we just got the whole thing up and running. Very, very easy. So quickly, we have web pages, and they vary by screen size, different user attributes. Examples, adverts, for example. In the real world, you don't put the same advert at the side of the road on a big billboard that's being viewed from a car. You don't actually have the same physical advert as the one you put in a magazine or the one you use on the TV. It's the same message, there's the same branding, but actually the layout of the advert varies depending on how it's being viewed, how people interact with it. Videos, business processes as well. These things all can vary by screen size, viewing distance, input methods. So how do we display or remove containers based on the server? So rather than using display none on the client, how do we perform that activity on the server? So we need to do two things. So what I'm going to do is just show you the changes I made to Gravity in order to turn the containers on and off. And I say this is just one way of doing it. I had originally thought of using module filter, but I didn't really have enough time to fully understand it. So I'm using the original technique that we developed and used on our site. So we need to make some changes to the skin. The first thing we create is a skin controller that you can put on every page. And what that does really doesn't come out very well on here, but in the bottom right-hand corner here, and ideally it would be made bigger, is the option to switch between the view that's currently being used to display the page. So you often see this on sites. You'll see it on our site where you can, if you've gone onto the site as a smartphone, but you want to see the desktop version of that site, you can press desktop and it will take you to the desktop version. Yeah, and often that's quite useful if people are used to seeing the website on a big screen. Then when it's sort of shrunk down, they're not used to that. They want to go back and actually see it on a big screen device, the big screen view. And this gives them that option. So how do we default the view? Because the first thing we need to know is which view do we want to use? Do we want to use smartphone or do we want to use desktop? So we can use the server-side detection to work out the type of device. And then what the skin controller can do is that the first section here is looking at the query string, and it says, has a view type been specified in the query string? So that URL at the bottom of the page allows you to basically refreshes the page, puts a view type into the query string, and if that's present, then that sets the view. So the user has that ability to change the view that's being used. That can then be stored in the session. That gets stored in the session later on, but it may also be present from a previous request. So that can be stored in the session. And if none of those things have happened, so it's the first time the user's coming to the site, they haven't expressed a preference about the view that they want to see, then what we can do is look at that in the request.browser object. So request.browser is an interface. Microsoft provide HTTP browser capabilities. It's fully extensible, and you can add other properties to it. It's sort of part of the underlying framework, and we've added, in this case, is smartphone and is small screen. So we're querying those two keys, and if either of those are true, then we're saying we'll default the view to the smartphone. If they're not true, then we'll use the desktop version. Obviously, this could be made more sophisticated, so you'd put tablet in there as well, as kind of a minimum to cover the major devices at the moment. And then what we do is save that view back to the session. So if the user's expressed a preference, we store it. If they haven't, either previously or because it's the first request to the page, then we'll look and query the device, query the database to see what the device is. So that's the change to that's the controller we put in place. What we can also then do in the skin is we can turn on and off those hyperlinks at the bottom of the page. So we look at the view that's being requested. So this is the, have I done that right? Yeah. Yes, so that's our skin controller. And what that's doing is putting the hyperlinks at the bottom of the page. And what I've just realized is I haven't put the code for the skin into this, but I hope you get the idea that you just put these as hyperlinks at the bottom of the page, and then they're being turned on and off based on the type of device. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, I'm seeing nods, that's great. So then we have a look at the container. So we moved on to the container. What I've done is taken title underscore h2 from Gravity, and I've changed the name so that it's -desktop only. So when you see the list of containers, you see title -2, the normal one, and then you also see the desktop only version. And the only change that the desktop only version has is it overrides the onload event, and it sets the visibility of the container, the user control effectively, based on, is the current view desktop? So the current view has to be desktop for this particular control to be displayed. And we also want to make sure that this magic doesn't happen when we're in edit mode. Otherwise, you'd never be able to edit it on anything other than on a smartphone, which would be mad. So we have to check to see if we're in edit mode. And all we've done is extend the controller, so there's a property called isEditMode, which effectively is then calling DNN to find out if we're in edit mode. And then the other thing we do is put a little warning sign up at the bottom of the panel, so you know that it's a desktop-only container, so you know you wouldn't expect to see that on a mobile device. And then we do the reverse for the mobile. So this is checking to say, are we a phone, in this case a smartphone, and it just does the reverse. And you could imagine you could create multiple containers where effectively you've got a rule that's turning it on or off, and it's a very simple rule, and it just gives you this basic ability. So had we had an internet connection, some of you might have been aware there was a football match last night. Did any of you watch the football match? A few of you did. The Glanton guys. Yeah. So there was a splendid goal scored quite early on in the game by our team Hull. And let's say we wanted to put that out there on our website and put a page up about the game. And there's a video on YouTube I found last night. People were putting posts up pretty quickly about this game. It's the biggest game. It's like the Super Bowl in the UK. So I want to put a video up there. But when you use YouTube, you use iframes. So they're not very responsive. An iframe is an iframe. So what I've got here is I've used the desktop control to put a larger version of the video into the page in the top part there. And then underneath, I've taken a smaller embedding of this particular video. So what happens when we access it on a desktop device, when we're in desktop view, you get the full highest resolution available. And if you're on a mobile device, you get the smaller version. Now, that can be extended to adverts, and that's a very popular use case. Sebastian, you've got a question?
When you're filtering on display, that means that both modules get retrieved, the content gets constructed, and then the one is displayed and the other one is just thrown away.
Exactly, and it's not the best way of doing it. It is a way of doing it, but there are inefficiencies. Now, Sean has told me about iModule filter, and as I say, I apologise because in preparing for this, I sort of misread, I think, the sort of summary. I'd misunderstood it. I thought that was something that works at the module level, i.e. you have to build it into the module, but I understand, Sean, that it works at the container level as well. Is that right?
Yeah, well, it works at when the page is being assembled.
Yeah.
You can look at the characteristics of the device at that level,
So what you would do in the code I've shown you, and what I would advocate doing, is look at that capability. So the first bit of what I've shown you is still valid. Yeah, the ability for the user to control which view that they're seeing, whether they're in desktop view or then they're in smartphone view, that's still valid. But rather than using this bit of code to control which you know, whether the container is displayed or not, you can use this other technique. Although what I would say is this is pretty straightforward, but there is a performance penalty, as you point out. Okay, so pretty straightforward. One way of solving the problem. So our next steps, well, you can start to do some relatively sophisticated things with these techniques. So we can do A/B testing based on screen size, for example. So a popular use case for some of our high-end customers is to look at how their advertising performs based on physical screen size and start to vary that advertising using A/B testing at certain physical screen sizes, because they recognize that a very small improvement in click-through rate is basically bottom-line revenue. Yeah, so that's a particularly high-end use case, but there are plenty of others. But really, as I've been putting this together, as I've been thinking about this over the years, I've always wanted to find a rules engine that really makes the process a lot simpler. And here in Italy, we found it. So Bogdan, would you like to come up and show us your solution? Hopefully the changeover will work, if not entirely seamlessly. Shall I just explain conceptually how the process works while you set up, yeah? I don't know. You pick up that set. Okay. We've just taken it from the one I was using and plugged it into Bogdan's one. I'll explain sort of conceptually how this works and what we. So I do that, yeah. So what we have with my tokens is the ability to set up these tokens based on rules, and you can. They're wonderful, aren't they? I mean, there's just so many things you can do, whether it's use a role and things like that you were showing me yesterday. And one of the things you can do is create a token based on Razor. So where I was showing you earlier, request.browser, and then getting the property value, you can turn that into a token that's then available to loads of other modules. So we were able to create a token for smartphone, yes. And then using that token, we can then turn things on or off in other controls. So what we were able to do very quickly, and I hope we're going to be able to show you at some point. Yeah. Okay. Let's do that while I finish the last bit of explanation. So these tokens then become available to other controls. So we can. So what we can do. Oh, was the laptop crashed? Ah, there we go. these tokens then become available to other controls. So one of them is action forms. So what you can do is you can turn fields on and off in action forms based on these tokens. So, for example, if you wanted to create a token that was for a mobile device, one that could actually make a telephone call, then you might change the form so that it asks for more fields or less fields based on whether it was a mobile device or not. Yeah? So coming to sort of one of the challenges yesterday, it's not easy to enter data on a mobile phone. So you might actually just drop the optional fields or move them down or change the order in which the form's displayed so that it's optimized for the device. But coming back to the question and the subject for this workshop, Dean and Sharp are about to release Easy Container. And one of the things Easy Container can be driven by is my tokens. And that's what I hope with the restart, we're crossing our fingers here, we're going to show you. We've got something, it's coming to life. It's coming to life. The Frankenstein technology. So rather clumsily, I've explained the concept, not in parallel with the live demonstration. So let's see if we can get that up and running. Are there any Mac advocates in the room? Apple Mac advocates. There's a few Apple logos there. Probably someone will say later, you wouldn't have had that problem with a Mac. It just worked. Okay. So, would you like me to sort of commentate, or?
Okay. So you comment and I will.
And you track, yeah. Okay. So this is like improvised comedy, but improvised technology. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to try and. Good idea. So Bogdan's going to go into the My Tokens menu, which gets added when you install the D&M Sharp My Tokens module in the admin page, and this is where you configure your tokens. And I saw this yesterday for the first time, and it's exactly what I think we've been looking for this problem. So you can create you're creating a new token here, yeah? Yeah. So we're creating a device namespace here, and we can call it whatever we like. And this smartphone, yeah? And we can populate that token based on RazorScript. And we can do this by calling request.browser, and then is smartphone, and that's it. So we save that token. Yeah. So very easy to do. We've got our token now, and we can test it, and it's false. And are we able to emulate do you want to emulate the smartphone? Yeah.
Or maybe I can go into the form?
Yes, that's probably going to be more efficient in the interests of time. Sorry, Jeff.
I'll start with the contact form.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we're going to do is add a contact form from action form to the page. Okay. So here's one we've done earlier. So we've got our fields here. And what we could do is just make the phone field vary based on that token that we created earlier. So the device's smartphone condition has to be true in order for this field to be displayed. So the field has disappeared because we're not on a smartphone. Thank you. Now, I'm interested to see what response we're going to get when we emulate a smartphone. So we're going to be an iPhone 5. We're going to refresh the page. So this is using a feature that's become quite popular now in the browsers. They all have this emulation feature for mobiles. Yeah, and we're now pretending to be an iPhone, and phones come back. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Round of applause for DNN Sharp. And it's that easy. Yeah, and the easy container control, which you've got it set up. Yeah, cool.
So this basically will also have the same mechanism to put a token in the condition and determine if the container is visible or not. If the container is not visible, then the modules inside the container will also follow the same logic. And basically this easy containers takes the pressure from having to do the CSS files. You just do everything from here. You can set the width, you can float it left, right. I don't know, you can put some margin, stuff like that. And also change colors. It's very good to save time. Maybe not red. Yeah.
So am I right in understanding that the token to control the visibility is being added just at the moment ahead of final release very shortly?
But I understand the tokens will also decide where it falls into the order of the mobile system and how wide it is.
Yes, we'll also add capabilities for responsiveness on the client side.
So you're making the decisions literally by altering fields in the container.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So it's just wonderfully flexible, very easy to use. And I think that we've shown you at least 3 solutions to how to turn content on and off based on the type of device. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.